I don't know if I want to call it laziness exactly, but it's certainly the laziest way to like get a rise out of people like me.
Ooh, boy. Welcome back to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. This is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite albums or playlists to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and we come together on this podcast to discuss it all. I'm Travis Ritchie, and with me, as always, is my good friend
Matt Runquist. Hey, Travis.
Hey.
Hey, today on the episode, we're going to talk about the REM album New Adventures in Hi-Fi and the movie Inception.
Wow, that sounds fun. But before we get to that, Matt, sounds like you're having an interesting week.
I am having an interesting week. There's been lots of difficult stuff over here, and my brain is working slowly tonight. So
You know, I've had my share of episodes where my brain was working slowly, and so I sympathize with you. I personally have had I slept in today because this was the weekend where we were supposed to go to Gallifrey One, the big Doctor Who convention, and usually I spend the whole weekend there. Thursday a little bit, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I did not go today because I still don't have a car and an easy way to get down to the LAX Marriott from the San Fernando Valley. So I didn't go. Instead, I slept in and I got like 9 hours of sleep, which felt great for me.
I got to admit,
It
I'm
is-
super jealous. I cannot sleep in even when I don't get enough sleep. Like even when I don't go to bed on time.
Oh.
I routinely get up between 5 and 6, and if
Oof.
sleeping in for me is like 6:15, right?
Wow.
And so if I'm up till 1 or 2 in the morning, then I still get up very early, and I'm very jealous of your ability to sleep in if you need to.
Yeah, I am. I have traditionally been a pretty good sleeper, and so back when we lived in Comstock Hall, which was this dormitory made of like it was constructed with like those heavy cinder block. You know, it was a hefty building, and I used to have this very loud alarm clock that was made the sound of the red alert sound from Star Trek, and I had the guy who lived underneath me complain about how loud it was because it would just go off and I would not wake up.
Yeah, I
So
do remember you sleeping pretty heavy back then.
yeah, it's not so bad now. I mean, it's almost I reached a kind of like a sweet spot where I could get up when I needed to, and now I feel like I'm at a point where I'm not sleeping as soundly as I used to. But in any case, so my big thing this week was prepping for the show that we do at Gallifrey One, which I did go to. I was in it. And we do a sketch show on Saturday night at 8 p.m., which is it's in the main ballroom, and we get an audience of somewhere like 1,000 to 1,500 people. And it's a very nerdy Doctor Who sketch, Doctor Who heavy show. And I was in 7 of 11 sketches.
Wow.
And so I had a lot to learn. And mostly everything went pretty well. The audience response was great. I dropped a couple of lines that I feel bad about, but I did do a couple of the lines that I was most worried about perfectly. So, so that's yeah. The other big thing that's going on with me is I have this. You talk about health issues a little bit, but and this isn't serious, but I started getting plantar fasciitis again on my right foot,
Oh.
and it's something I had really badly about 12 years ago when I first started running, and then I started buying really good shoes, or well, I guess what I thought were really good shoes, and it went away until lately, and I don't quite know why. But last night after the show, I was limping back to the car, and this morning I could barely walk, and I just went for a walk before our recording so that I could listen to the album one last time because I've been too busy to listen to a second time like I usually like to do. And luckily, I was able to kind of stretch things out, and by the time I got going on the walk, 10, 15 minutes in, I was walking normally. So that gives me some hope for, the future. But man, most of today I couldn't walk.
It could be. It could just be convention foot, don't you think?
No, it was going on before that. It's
Okay.
been going on for about at least a at least a few days, maybe a week already. But it hasn't been super bad. It's been bad enough that I bought myself a one of those foot massage machines,
Mm-hmm.
but not so bad that I was limping. I could just feel it, but I was still able to hike and even run. And I didn't give a second thought to going to play some ultimate frisbee on Saturday, but that is part of what exacerbated it a
Okay.
lot. So, yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
well, folks, if you're wondering what convention foot is, it's because conventions are usually held in convention centers, and convention centers are notorious for having large expanses of concrete that is really, really hard to stand up on all
true,
day
true.
long.
I will say Gallifrey 1 takes place at the LAX Marriott, and their downstairs is very well carpeted and padded, so that's not so much of a problem. The carpeting at the LAX Marriott is a point of much contention, though. They replaced it over the pandemic with, it used to be this really kind of funky, interesting, like, people would make costumes of the carpet.
Oh,
It was
wow.
so distinctive. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the mural that's kind of hanging behind you as far as the color scheme. But you can find pictures of it in various places if you look up Gallifrey 1 carpet. But they replaced it with this carpet that was just worse. Just
Just worse.
it was just worse. It's a cooler color. It's, I guess, okay, but I don't know. I can't describe it. It just, if anybody from the LAX Marriott ever hears this, you did a bad job choosing your carpet. That's all.
Well, speaking of doing a bad job, do you want to talk about the recommendations this week?
Man, oh man, do I not want to talk about these, because I think we're going to disagree on a lot, and
think
I
we
don't
are
like
gonna
disagreeing with you, Matt.
No,
I don't like
I
it.
don't like disagreeing with you, but as long as it comes from a place of like knowledge, then I'm
Sure.
cool with it.
So let's shake things up and start with the music first.
Yeah, let's do
Um,
that.
because I just want to get this off my chest. I didn't love this album.
Yeah, I got
And
that sense.
you said last weekend, and when we did a kind of a false start on this episode, you said that it was their best,
I think it
possibly
is
their
their best
REM's
album.
best album.
Yeah.
Yep. There we go. I listened to it twice the whole way through, and I did not enjoy the experience much at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is it that you found difficult?
So, okay. So first off, one of the things I like, and I think this is now an established thing that I've, maybe a trend of mine or a fact that we can kind of agree on, is I like a singable song. I like songs that theoretically I could learn and sing along to, and that's something that REM has done in the past with some of the songs that we know them best for, Shiny Happy People, and those kind of 80s and early 90s tunes of theirs. This one had none of that. I found it very difficult to understand many of the lyrics, and certainly not consistently. Like, every once in a while I would catch a phrase like, I like to hear the caged bird sing, and then I'm like, oh, I understand that, but then most of the song would be unintelligible. Like, and I was thinking about this, that there's an argument to be made for the vocalist being just another instrument that melds with the other instruments of the song to make kind of an orchestration of a song, right? And then in that way, it's not important what the words are that they're singing. It just becomes music. I don't think that who is the guy that sings for the
Michael
REM?
Stipe.
Michael Stipe. Thank you. I don't think his voice warrants that kind of take. Like, he has a distinctive voice, but it's not what I would call easy to listen to, right? And so I need more. I need more from that. And then when I'm reading the lyrics themselves, they're not that great.
Oh, I disagree hardcore. What do you think What don't you like about these
Well,
lyrics?
I had a lyric that I was listening to on one of the songs I was listening to on the walk, and I was like, okay, what are the lyrics here? And I honestly don't know what song it was, but the lyrics were kind of, I don't know, they just seemed dumb to me. If I could take a moment to maybe figure out which one it was, boy, you cut a lot from this album in your playlist, didn't you? I'm just now looking at the album itself, and
Well, no,
it's a
because there's like
2 hour long album.
no, it's not. See, this is this thing that they do to capitalize on Generation X nostalgia. They release these
Uh-huh.
20th or 25th anniversary editions of albums, and they have a whole bunch of like what they call B-sides and rarities, but really they're just demos of the exact same songs. And there's
Oh,
almost
okay.
never anything interesting to be learned from the demos, right? It's usually just a poorly recorded version of the same song.
Oh, I see.
And
Um,
so I did you the favor of cutting out all of the
Cutting out
the
all the stuff
B-sides
that
and
wasn't.
rarities.
Well, that wasn't supposed to play because I was supposedly had my volume turned down. Sorry about that. Um, so I'm just looking at some of the songs here, looking at the lyrics. That's not the one.
See, he just admitted that one was good. It didn't sound dumb enough.
That is not at all what I admitted. I was literally just looking for the specific song that I was, not liking. Um,
While you're looking this up, I never got to introduce the album properly because you wanted to savage it so viciously early on.
yeah,
in
I'm
the-
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You go ahead, do that.
For those of you who are wondering what exactly it is that we're talking about the REM album, New Adventures in Hi-Fi. So early in REM's career, they released a bunch of albums independently, not independently, but on a minor label in Athens, Georgia, and they got more and more popular on college rock radio, which was really just becoming a thing in the 80s. And they got signed to a major label and had a series of very high profile albums that culminated in Automatic for the People, which sold like 1 billion copies. Then they had one more album, and then they signed very famously an $80 million 5 album contract. None of the 5 albums from that sold anywhere near anything had since they were in the 80s. It was a huge failure. If you look up lists of like the biggest mistakes of the music business, REM's giant contract is generally very high up the list. It's pretty funny. But this album is New Adventures in Hi-Fi, and it was the first album released after that contract was signed, and I think it's fantastic. A lot of, I think this is an album concerned with like behavior and how we treat each other, and I really dig it.
You're not alone, by the way. I am an outlier on this. I was looking it up on Metacritic, and this is REM's highest rated album on Metacritic.
Is it really?
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I thought of this as like an undiscovered gem that people didn't really know about.
well, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has many reviews. It just means that it is the highest rated, of
Okay.
the reviews that are out there,
Okay.
right? So yeah, I mean, I listened to it twice all the way through, and I also felt that the melodies and a lot of times I found myself waiting for a chorus that was like, okay, here's a verse, here's a chorus that kind of I can sing along to. There was a song that was I can't remember which one it was. Again, I don't take notes because I'm usually out and about or walking, and I'm not listening to it. Listening to songs like on a desk, like analyzing it. I'm just trying to enjoy it as in part of my day.
So
but like,
there
I
you
feel
go. Travis just admitted that he refuses to write notes on his own flesh while climbing mountains in LA, and I think
confirmed.
I blame him.
I do think that there was I think it was So Fast, So Numb I was listening to, and it kind of starts off with a nice drum beat and like some good music, and it had a couple verses, and then I was hoping for like a chorus that was like I don't know, that would catch me or something, and it just didn't happen. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
no, that's a fair read against this album. It is not big on big chorus moments. This album is very much a journey. You know, it's funny. It kind of goes back a little bit to Godspeed You Black Emperor 2 weeks ago, in terms of like it's a very experiential album, and you know,
Yes.
it's not a series of pop bangers, which
Yes.
you know, Carly Rae Jepsen forever.
I will give you that, absolutely. This is, you know, and we have had several of these albums where I've said, you know what, if this was just playing in the background on a Sunday afternoon, I'd probably be okay with it, and it'd be nice. It'd be a nice thing to have in the background. I'm not feeling that for this album, even, and I can't really put my finger on why. I just, it felt too meandering for me, and too almost stream of consciousness for me, and so I don't think that I would probably want to listen to this again. I honestly wasn't looking forward to listening to it the second time, and but I wanted to make sure that my initial impression from, you know, last Monday's hike when I listened to it the first time was the same.
Can I ask you, in the future, let me know if you're feeling that way, and what I'll do is make you just listen to the best song of the album like 3 times rather than the whole album. Because if it's gonna get a hook in you, right, it needs to be, you know,
well,
and so, you know, maybe that's the thing, is like, oh, this one is just tough. You know.
Yeah, but here that does raise a question, a comment that I had. First off, I would like you to do that regardless. Tell me what your favorite song, or even what you think my favorite song would be from an album.
Well, I think if there's one thing we know right now, it's that I have no idea what your taste is, because because I will say every week, except for Godspeed You Black Emperor, every single week I do try to actively pick something that I think you will like.
Interesting.
And
okay.
So the fact that you've come through with some pretty low ratings lately is it's a little perplexing to me.
Okay. Well, and I want to try to express why I like or don't like an album or a playlist as well as I can. And so maybe as we go, you'll learn more about my tastes, as I have already learned more about your movie tastes, and we will try to adapt to each other. But definitely, I like the idea of you telling me which song is either the best or that you think will be my favorite, but leads me to my other thought. And this album was one of, I think, 2 where I specifically had this thought, and which is, if you're making an album, to me, the first song should be the best song, right? The first song should be unequivocally, like, everybody should agree that it's the best song on the album, the one that hooks you, so that you can, like, kind of be engaged with the rest of the album, either hoping for a song that's that good or what. But man, the first song on this one, How the West Was Won and Where It Got Us, was not that for me. I think I was a little bit perplexed on how they could choose it as the first song at first while I was listening to it. But then I think that as I was continuing to listen to the album, maybe that became not as important. So that was that's my thing. Tell me what you love about this album, because I do want to hear why you love it, and I think that's important.
Oh, okay. You know, it's hard for me to say. I think one of the things, and this actually maybe points to why it was tough for you, it is an album that I've listened to over and over again, and so I know like all the nooks and crannies of it. But I love the lyrics on this album. I think it's so good. There's the song "New Test Leper." It's the 3rd song on the album.
Yep.
You know, he starts out with, "I can't say that I love Jesus. That would be a hollow claim. He did make some observations, and I'm quoting them today. Judge not lest ye be judged." What a beautiful refrain. You know? And then there's actually a series of those quotes throughout the song, right? And basically what he's doing here, so Michael Stipe is, I assume, an atheist, at the very least an agnostic, right? And he's a member of the community, although he's never been super open about what exactly that entails for him. But
which community?
The LGBTQIA+.
Oh, he's queer. Okay, got it.
Yeah, he's queer.
Okay.
Yeah. And, it feels to me like I'm going to quote your supposed leader right back at you and make you realize that of the two of us, you are being a less good Christian, right?
Sure.
And it very much comports with my experience throughout my life where, I don't identify as a Christian anymore, but I do think the teachings of Jesus are pretty good teachings, right?
Yeah.
I'm pro Jesus, but his followers fucking suck, right? And so that song resonates with me because I appreciate a good atheist who can quote Jesus.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I do that all the time. I actually have a copy of the Bible on my phone, and I refer to it frequently because I don't believe any of it is literal, but I do think that a lot of the stories and parables and lessons are applicable to life. And I think, above all is love thy neighbor as thou would love thyself. That is such a simple directive and was pretty much his entire message. And it's amazing how easy it is for people to get wrong. But I get, and that's that was I was reading through that.
And so that's not the only song like that on the album. I think there's, How the West Is Won and Where It Got Us, I think is a really fascinating song. I mean, it's pretty dense, right? And so you're not necessarily going to get that out of a first listen. But engaging with U.S. history in the context of a pop rock song, I think, is an interesting journey, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. But and I think, you know what? My biggest fault then is that I can't understand the lyrics. 2 times through, I couldn't understand what he was saying, and I don't know if that's an audio mix problem or a singing problem or what, but I that's one thing to note about me is I do like to hear the lyrics, and I keep on going to an album like Graceland, which even though the lyrics are kind of weird poetry, sometimes you can understand what Paul Simon is saying, and you can understand what Elton John is saying in Made in England, and
the boy in the bubble and the baby with the baboon heart.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, it's a weird thing to say, but you can understand what he's saying. So I think maybe is one of my big frustrations with this album. In addition to not having maybe a familiar structure, to the songs. So I think I am a fan of familiarity. I don't know if that makes me uncool, maybe, but I do kind of like that.
It's always uncool to wonder whether or not you're cool.
Yeah, well, sure. But it's not the familiarity that I like. It's not that I want to hear the same thing over and over again. I think I like a familiar structure, a familiar framework, and then be interesting within that. And I think that's because there are kind of things that work. I don't know. I don't want to say what works and what not, because obviously this is a popular album. I don't want to impugn your judgment, sir. But
I'm gonna just give you the reason I gave you a look just now is because, of course, I'm gonna go back to. This is why I thought you would like Carly Rae Jepsen's Kiss, right? That album is just a series of pop bangers whose lyrics are easy to understand, and I feel like has more depth than you would think from looking at it. And certainly her career has gone on to show that she is a deeper artist than that album. And so the things that you're telling me are the things that made me think you would like that album.
Yep. Okay, that's fair. And you know what? I will say maybe I am hard to please for music because music just and we've one of the reasons we started this podcast is that music just isn't my love, just the way movies aren't really your love. And so I think it's
we're exposing ourselves.
Exactly. I love the fact that we are actually exposing ourselves to new things, and I do appreciate that, even though we're not necessarily sharing the love that we each have
This
for
is
our
all this
various
is all
things.
fair. Well, on that note, would you like to give it a rating?
Let me hear yours first.
No. You this is on you, man.
You show me mine, and I'll tell you mine.
But again, I never feel like your rating is a punishment or anything. I understand that you don't love the same things I do.
Yes, and this is purely for me. I will probably never listen to this album again. I'm gonna give it a I'm gonna give it a 2.
A 2. Wow, a bold choice, Cotton.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel bad about doing it, but I didn't enjoy the experience of listening to it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right.
I would rather read it. You know what I would like to do at some point? I would like to read the lyrics as like a book of poetry.
Yeah.
I'll bet that might be interesting to me because just in talking with you, and I've been going through some of the lyrics, I do like some of them now that I can understand what he's saying.
That's fair. All right. Well, I give this out. You know what? I'm not even gonna. I was gonna give it a 9 just because you gave it such a low score, but I was all prepared to give it a 10 actually before you gave it your score. So yeah,
nice.
this literally is one of my favorite albums of all time.
That's great.
I did like a ranking sort of my favorite albums a couple of years ago, and this one came in the top 10. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that you did that. I like it makes me feel better that you stuck to your guns.
Thank you.
Our average for this album is higher.
Yeah,
for that,
that's a really good point. All right, let's talk about this movie. Somebody assigned me a who's the guy? Christopher Nolan movie. Even though he knows that I hate The Prestige. If you're new to our podcast, you might not know this, but I hate The Prestige.
No, I don't remember that you hated it. I just remember that you didn't like it. You hated it?
No, I hated The Prestige. Yeah, I was
Oh,
mad.
wow. I guess I didn't know that.
I was angry at the end of The Prestige.
Wow. I kind of want to touch on that for a second. Do you remember why you were angry?
Because I felt like the movie was bullshit and I hated it. I was like, so there's like the answer, and then there was just the fact that I was like, there is nobody in this movie who I want good things for, right? There's just nobody. There's absolutely no one who I'm like, yes, that guy. I'm rooting for him. I want him to get what he wants. There's just nobody in the movie. Not even David Bowie, who I love.
Wow. Or Scarlett Johansson or anything. Okay. Well, have you liked any of Christopher Nolan's movies? Like, did you like? You probably didn't like Batman Begins because it's a superhero movie.
Yep.
Did you didn't like the Memento?
I did I loved Memento.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I did too, and I think one of the things I liked about Memento was the kind of the mental gymnastics that it makes you do, but also it is a complete story that doesn't feel lazy. And that's one of the things, like, Nolan released a movie recently called Tenet, and I found it annoying to watch, and I did not like the experience of watching it at all. Part of it was that it kind of touches on my music issue. Like, Nolan famously doesn't care about the dialogue in his movies. Like, he frequently will mix the dialogue so that it's unintelligible. And he says that he mixes it for the very best theaters. And if you're not watching it in the very best theaters, he doesn't care about how much you understand.
That's
whatever.
okay. I watch it with closed captions on. It's fine.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I don't like to have to read while I'm watching a movie. But anyway, so this movie, though, Inception, that we're talking about, this came out in 2010, I believe. And it was, huge cast. You've got Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Tom Hardy, Cillian Murphy, Elliot Page, and Ken Watanabe. And of course Michael Caine, who is in everything from Christopher Nolan. And this kind of checked a lot of boxes for me. This came out before I think that Leonardo DiCaprio was kind of doing his I want to get an Oscar series of movies with J. Edgar and the Aviator, stuff like that, culminating in what we did last week with
The Revenant.
And so he was kind of still like cool, young, cute Leonardo DiCaprio, only a few years past. Well, not got a few years, probably. I guess he was 15 years past Titanic, 14, 13, something like that.
Yeah.
And but it just seemed like a fun science fiction. Like, I love sci-fi. I love a mystery. I love something that makes you think, but also it knows the answers to its questions,
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of checked all those boxes. The special effects seemed grounded. There's a lot of, in my mind, comparison between this movie and, say, Doctor Strange, which had a lot of city-based like special effects of like making things that didn't seem real try to look real. And I didn't like Doctor Strange in that way for that reason, but I did like this movie, and I like kind of the mixing of realities that they do in this movie. And as far as business, it had a $160 million budget, which was, I can definitely see that. It was ambitious, and it made $836 million in the box office. It was the biggest movie of the year that it came out.
That's
biggest
incredible.
Movie of 2010.
Thank you for that intro, Travis.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm probably most of the people that are listening to this podcast I would guess have seen Inception.
Yep, pretty popular movie.
You had not.
It was the most popular movie of the year.
So you didn't see it.
Yeah, I had not seen this
Until
movie. Mostly, I mean, I knew that it was a cultural touchstone for people. I knew that, that it was popular. I actually didn't know that it was Christopher Nolan, but, people have referenced Inception in the popular culture enough over the last few years that I knew
so much. Yeah,
I knew, the basic premise of like nested realities.
Sure.
I actually
within
did,
a dream.
Well, I didn't know that it was a dream.
Okay.
But I knew that like that it had something to do with nested realities, right?
Okay. So what'd you think?
Well, I started off this movie really loving it. The acting is really good. It draws you in to its story quickly, and it presents a bunch of questions to you, and it largely answers those questions rather than like dangling them in front of you for an hour before. There's that opening sequence, and then you start seeing, oh, okay, these are the rules that we're playing by.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we go any further, I'd like to say there is a lot of phlebotinum in this movie. You're familiar with the concept of phlebotinum?
I would say no. I was thinking that sounds like the blood splatter thing.
No, phlebotinum is like, we're going to say some words now, and you're just going to let them wash over you and not think too hard about what they mean. That's like we're gonna.
Are you talking like a technobabble or?
Yeah, technobabble. Like we're gonna throw some of this magic fairy dust over this, and it's gonna be cool, right?
Okay, got it.
So,
I've never heard that word before. I'm gonna have to look it up.
I think it might be from flubber, but I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay. That makes some sense. Sure.
Yeah. So, I started out really liking it. And the problem that I kind of ran into is like the more time I spent in the world of this movie, which is a beautiful place to spend time, and is really like, it's cool, right? It's beautifully photographed. It's the different locales are very interesting and well thought out. You know, it's good stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the more time I spent in it, the more I was kind of irritated by it. You know,
Okay.
just like the questions that like you want to hand wave away, and yeah, and I did hand wave away at first, and then I came back and I'm like, okay, so why does someone need to design the dream? And there's an answer to that question, right? But like, it's like, well, anyways. And so there's a person who designs the dream, and there's a process by which they design the dream, and there's a process by which we get the dreamer to land in that dream rather than in their other dream. But mostly there's just this fancy briefcase, and we're just going to say it's the briefcase. Where did the briefcase come from? How many briefcases are there? How do they work? Like, it's all completely just sort of, no, man, it's the briefcase, right? You know, and that didn't bother me at first. I was like, cool, magic briefcase, whatever, right? But like, as I got more into the movie, and like, there's all the stuff with the different time scales and the multiple kicks and how the kick works, and I just spent more and more time going, oh, I think it was like an accretion of like small things that I was like willing to let go of.
Sure, yeah.
Individually, but as they I just got buried under tissue papers eventually, and I was like, it's too much for me. Right?
That's interesting. Okay.
You know,
that's interesting because I weirdly enough do have that same experience with this movie, where the more I watch it, the more questions I have that are not satisfyingly answered.
Yeah.
And I think I get what you're saying, where they'll give an answer that to them says, oh, we've answered this question. But the answer itself requires an answer that they don't answer.
Yeah.
And
you know, and the other thing that this movie does a lot is like, it almost makes itself harder than it has to be, right? Like, so there's all this stuff with like the projections of the dreamer's mind come out as people who are suspicious of the others who don't belong in the dream and will try to kill them, right? And so that all like sort of makes sense as like a through line, but I know as a human being that the reason those people are there and that mechanism exists is because we would like to have an action movie. And so
yes.
And so they're going to come and they're going to attack the dreamers, because otherwise it's just a, you know, tense psychological thriller with no action, right?
Sure.
And so, you know, it's just things like that start to irritate it. It's right. It's like, oh no, you're putting these arbitrary obstacles in because you were able to get this actor for the cast or whatever, right? Like, I still right now, and this is not an exaggeration, have no idea what Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character was supposed to be, what his motivation was, why he was there, like, what his, you know, it's funny because at one point he's like, I'm the best. And I was like, the best what? The best what? What are you the best of? Please tell me now, because I know that Ariadne is the best architect, even though she's a student, you know. I don't know what you're the best at. What are you the best at? And as far as I can tell, nobody has been made a promise by Ken Watanabe other than Leonardo DiCaprio, right? The other people are just like, yeah, we'll go on a heist with you. I won't ask too many questions. Like, you know, Tom Hardy is amazing in this, right? Joseph Gordon-Levitt is amazing in this. But I don't know why they're there. Are they getting money? Yeah. Are they getting their rocks off? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. This is notably one of the last movies I've really liked Tom Hardy in that I can think of off the top of my head. I always like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he's fantastic. But yes, I do agree with you. This is one of those movies that is, you have to, I find myself really enjoying it as long as I'm kind of cutting off the top 10% of my intelligence.
Yeah.
Just let myself, and there's a lot of things like that. Star Trek
Yeah,
is much the same
absolutely.
way.
Sure.
And I think this is very much Star Trek-y in that respect. And the reason we let it fly with Star Trek is that Star Trek is not set in our world, and
Right.
this ostensibly is. And so we expect it to make a little bit more sense
Yeah.
than we allow for something like Star Trek, which, oh yeah, warp drive and Klingons, sure. Um, Even though it's supposed to be set, like Star Trek is supposed to be set in a realistic future of our world, right?
Yeah.
There is another movie that does that, which I thought about assigning you. I don't know if we will at some point, but it's a movie that does not get a lot of good critical reception, but I think is a lot of fun, and it's The Core. Um,
Oh,
and
I've seen parts of I haven't seen the whole thing.
it's a movie where they have to travel.
Yeah, my ex-wife was super into like terrible
Really?
science fiction movies, and the
I
worse
see. I
the
don't think it's terrible.
the worse the movie was, the better for her.
Interesting. And she
and
loved The Core because it was horrible, huh?
I don't know if she loved the core because I will refuse to watch it.
Oh well, the way I think of The Core, for example, and The Core is a movie where they have to go core. They have to drill to the center of the Earth to restart the core of the Earth, which has stopped turning, and it's a ridiculous premise, and
Yeah,
it's
for a lot
but
of
it's
reasons.
very, but it's very, like, if you take out that. It's actually a fun movie. The acting is good, the special effects are good, the action is good, the script is pretty good. It's just the premise that is hard, and that to me is very much like Inception and Star Trek, where you just have to kind of let go of the premise and just enjoy what's happening, and then
but see,
all the other parts
there are
kind
so
of work.
many times here's the reason that I can't do that. There are so many times that the action on screen depends on the premise. That like I still don't have a real handle on why she kept showing up everywhere.
The wife?
Yes.
Mm.
I can't remember
Well,
her
I mean,
name.
Yeah,
Mal.
Marion Cotillard.
Well, Marion
whoever.
Cotillard, but Mal is what they call her. And I don't have a really good handle on why she kept showing up everywhere, why she kept trying to kill Leo. I mean, there's an overarching theory of the movie, and I haven't read this anywhere, but like he clearly lays out Christopher Nolan clearly lays out a set of evidence that leads one to suspect that Marion Cotillard was right and that Leo is inside of a dream and refusing to leave. But the last shot of the movie refuses to confirm that, and I hate it. I
was
that.
wondering what you were going to say about that.
Make a choice, man. And
Yeah.
And also don't leave like 700 breadcrumbs, right? And then be like, but you get to choose. No, I didn't get to choose because one, I don't make movies,
I knew you were going to be upset by this. Oh, I suspected you were. And I've thought a lot about that moment over the years.
Sure.
And for me, it could be either a lazy moment where the director is like, I don't want to make this choice, you make it. But it also could be the director does know, or the writer, director, or whoever the filmmakers are, they know the truth and are kind of leaving it to you to figure out and debate for yourself, which I enjoy a little bit more, but I do understand the frustration, absolutely.
Well, here's what I'll say about it, right? The moment the idea was introduced, I picked up on it, which is unusual for me. I'm not a big plot predictor. Like I watch mystery shows and I'm always like, I don't know, somebody, I guess, right? But I picked up on that. It's introduced maybe an hour into the movie. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I think she was right. And then it's kind of left alone for a while. And then the last scenes of the movie are all about it. But I mean, here's the thing, right? From the evidence available to me from his movies, I think Christopher Nolan's kind of a dick, right? And so with the knowledge that I think Christopher Nolan's kind of a dick, I feel like this is a dick move. It's just like, I don't know if I want to call it laziness exactly, but it's certainly the laziest way to like get a rise out of people like me, right? Like, oh, I know
Yep.
the answer and you don't, and blah blah blah. It's like
Yeah.
I know what the answer is too. Like, clearly he's in a fake reality, you know. Like,
I don't know. I don't know if I agree, but
yeah, you
that's
do.
that's a discussion for another
It's
day. I will send you one thing. There's a series of videos on YouTube called Pitch Meeting, and it's this guy's been doing them for 3, 4, 5 years now, and basically he takes apart, he deconstructs a movie or a TV series based on the premise of the writer pitching the idea to the producer or to the studio. And I found this
Yeah.
guy after season 8 of Game of Thrones, which offended me so badly, and his video gave me a little bit of catharsis. And I'm going to send you his video on Inception. It might do the same thing for you, but
Okay.
in the meantime,
Here's hoping.
why don't we give it a rating?
Uh, this is a really tough rating to give because so much about the movie is so good, right? I will say the action feels extremely gratuitous, right? It's just, here's the thing about the action in movies that are good is that, like, there's a flow to the action and a beginning, a middle, and an end, and like there's a sense of progress, right? The nature of the action in this movie is so, like, it feels arbitrary because it's just like,
Okay.
hey, we're just attacking you, right? And so, like, and it's explicitly a never-ending flood of bodies, right? Like they will never stop, right? And
Sure,
so,
sure. It
so
feels
it's
very much to me like almost like a immune system response,
yeah, or a video game or whatever, right? Where it's
Or
just,
that too, yeah.
they will just spawn another wave. But anyways, there's so many good things about this movie, but ultimately, I really had some severe, like, philosophical problems with it. So I'm gonna give it a 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
A
I'm gonna
little
give it a
lower than
4.
I expected, but that's fair given your critique. I
Yeah.
think I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay.
I enjoy this movie. It's not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I have loved a couple of his movies. I definitely have a range with him, but I think this is going to go right about 7. It's a movie that I can watch over every now and then. Not a movie
Okay.
that I need to watch frequently, though. So,
Fair enough. Awesome.
all right. Excellent. Well, and what do you have planned for me this week? I'm curious.
What do I have planned for you this week? Are you familiar with the band Fitz and the Tantrums?
I have never in my life heard of that band.
Well, you are missing out, my man. Fitz and the Tantrums is a band. I think they're 10 or 15 years old now. They're a big group in the neo soul movement. So lots of, like, upbeat tempos, good bass lines, lots of great vocals. There's actually 2 vocalists. The primary vocalist is a man, and then there's also a female vocalist who takes some leads and then does backing vocals on a bunch.
Okay.
Oh, right. And I've given you an album. I'm not just giving you all of Fitz and the Tantrums. I'm giving
I
you
should
an
hope
album.
so.
The album is called All the Feels. It is their album from, I think, 2020, and it is super duper good. This is recent music.
Okay.
We do sometimes have trouble giving you recent stuff, but this is recent.
Interesting. Okay, well, am going to. I wanted to. I was thinking about the fact that we touched on an actor, and then we touched on Christopher Nolan, and we've talked about him as a director, and so I thought I might give you another director that I really like, and so I'm curious if maybe you've seen all of this guy's movies that I love, but are you familiar with Frank Darabont?
I know the name, but that's all.
Okay. Have you seen? So he directed The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm assuming you've already
I
seen that.
have seen Shawshank.
Okay. Did you see The Green Mile, which was his?
I did, yeah.
Okay, great. It's a great movie. It's his follow-up. That's all right. We've got another chance here. Have you seen The Mist, which is his third Stephen King adaptation?
No, I have not seen The Mist.
Okay, I'm going to assign you The Mist. It's a 2007 movie, so it kind of definitely falls into our 20-year like timeline of your
Sure.
your lack of your movie desert. And The Mist is an adaptation of a Stephen King short story of the same name. And I don't think I'm going to tell you anything else about it. It's got a great cast. And I will say, if you happen to know, there's one thing about The Mist that's interesting, and that's that Frank Darabont originally wanted to release it in black and white. And I managed to get my hands on the Blu-ray of The Mist, and it includes a black and white version of the movie, and I found it superior. And I do not like black and white movies as a general rule. It's not my thing. Like it's like I am not an artistic like doing things because it's like, oh, this is like avant-garde or whatever. That's not my thing. But I thought The Mist was really good in black and white.
Nice.
You probably won't be able to find it in black and white. So enjoy it however you can. I will give you this heads up. It was made on a pretty low budget it's a horror movie. It's a scary movie. It's his other two Stephen King stories were not scary. Like the Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile are both touching dramas. This is not that. This is a monster movie, horror movie.
Another horror movie. Fun.
Yeah. What was the last one we gave you?
We did what was that? Clive Barker one, Hellraiser.
Oh yeah,
Hellraiser.
The first one, Hellraiser. So this will be our return to horror from our very first episode. Yeah. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right, great. Well, Matt, thank you for exposing yourself to me.
Well, Travis, thank you for exposing yourself to me.
All right, I hope you have a wonderful week. I myself am finally done with a lot of busyness, so I hope to be able to concentrate on writing and basically chill this week. So
Awesome.
Hopefully your music will be a good part of that.
Oh, I hope so too.
All right, thanks so much. I'll talk to you next week.
See you next week.